Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, perhaps you've been anticipating this. This is my first video in my deep dive year into the Thoth system. And yes, I call it a system. Let me explain my construct for Tarot. There is the larger Tarot system, which includes all decks of 78 cards broken down into a major arcana and a minor arcana of 4 suits with court cards and minor cards from 1 to 10. And there are some adjacent systems with some reduced numbers of cards called tarotkini, which can be read similarly, but I'm going to separate those off, and we're going to focus mostly on decks that are at 78 minimum cards, broken down into those groups. Within that larger system, I see at least 4 systems within the larger system. The most common in the English-speaking world is the Smith-Waite system, which was developed by Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, of course. Now, if you are a returning viewer to this channel, you probably already know this, but let me just give you my framework, just in case your framework is a little different. So those 2 co-creators from the Golden Dawn created what we call the Smith-Waite, the RWS, the Rider-Waite-Smith, many names, and all of the iterations of those decks, which are very, very popular and are multitude in modern society, in modern Tarot worlds and shops and all of that stuff. There are many, many Smith-Waite decks. Adjacent to that system is the Harris-Crowley Thoth system, which is different, but also comes from the Golden Dawn. And that's the system that I'm focusing on this year. Now, there are other systems. Yes, there's the Tarot de Marseille system, which predates the Golden Dawn. And that system is one that I will continue to use throughout this deep dive year, because I will continue to do my Tarot de Marseille adjacent and Antique Italian deck readings in conjunction with my Thoth studies, with my Thoth focus. And then there's a 4th system, which not many people talk about, but is a strong tradition, called the Continental Tarot system, which includes pre-Golden Dawn scholars and their decks from Europe, from the continent of Europe rather than England. And that continent of Europe, primarily thinking of France and Spain. And those scholars, those creators include such notable figures as Eliphas Levi, Pappus, Etea, Eudes Picard, and the French schools and the Spanish schools within that continental system are different, and there are many differences. They all diverge from each other in ways of associations and that kind of thing, but they are one larger system of continental Tarot. But we're focusing on the Thoth beginning today. And we're going to specifically be starting with the Harris-Crowley deck. Before I show you the spread for this week, I just would like to remind us that last week we were exploring ideas around disappointment. Do you recall that? This week we seem to be working in the lines or in the direction of worry. Do you worry? Am I worrying you talking about all these different systems of Tarot? I hope not. But worry. The worry that we're going to be talking about may not only be our own individual experience of worry. Have you ever noticed that when other people around you are worrying, you are affected as well? Whether you actually fall in line with the group dynamic of worry or not, we still oftentimes feel the effect of other people around us worrying. And it could be our family groups, it could be our groups of friends, it could be our society, our political affiliation, the leaders of those political affiliations. There's a lot of people out there, there are a lot of people out there worrying these days. Have you noticed that? Worrying about many things that perhaps deserve our attention, but I'm not sure that worry is the best application of our emotional energy. Giving attention to a thing that we might want to improve or change or prevent doesn't necessarily have to bring us to worry. Does that make sense to you? There are other ways of approaching that. It could be creative, it could be interest, it could be excitement. Look at, there's global warming. What can we do to do something different about that? Instead of, oh my God, it's global warming, we're all gonna die. There are different reactions, there are different ways of approaching things that are considered challenges or problems. And still, even if we try to manage to direct our emotional responses to things, to give attention to how we are emotionally responding emotionally to things, other people around us may not be. And so a lot of us find ourselves immersed in groups of people that are slipping into the experience of worry, who are creating worry around specific topics or groups of topics. The imaginary future. Oh my God, what's going to happen? How are we going to prevent this? How are we going to make this? How are other people going to accept our idea of what's right? So many things that so many people worry about. And that's what this spread, I think, is beginning with. It could be personal worry. Is there anything you're worried about? Are you worried about family, your own health, your own financial status, your relationship status, your relationship as a whole? Are you in a relationship and still worrying about that? Do you experience worry frequently these days? If you are, that's okay. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying any of us are wrong for having the experience of worry. I'm not saying society is wrong for having the experience of worry. But I also think there are other directions that we can go in, and I think there are ways for us to acknowledge and recognize the worry that we're experiencing, either personally or from the environment that we are placing ourselves in. So this week seems to be about worry, I think. Now remember, this is the first time that I am reading with these decks publicly. I've worked with these decks privately, but I've never done a full-on group, even a one-on-one reading with a Thoth deck. So this is my first time. So friends, expect some glitches and hitches. But let's see what we find. So what am I going to do? I'm going to show you the entire spread. As usual, I'll show you the spread. We'll talk about the whole spread. This is a new spread for me here on the channel. And then I'll show you how we're going to break it down, and then we'll look at the bits, and then we'll hopefully come up with a good message or good wisdom, good stuff at the end. Does that make sense? So friends, here we go. Here's the entire spread. So friends, what do you think of this spread? Have you ever seen a spread like this before? Maybe you have. This is a spread that I have adapted from a spread that I learned from Kelly Fitzgerald at The Truth in Story. And I'll try to put a link to her channel below because I have learned so much from her. She is brilliant. Oh, and she's got her own deck out, which I don't have yet. But she does have her own deck out, which you might want to check out. And so, like I said, I'll put a link to her channel. You can get information about her and the amazing teaching that she offers all of us on her channel. She's just wonderful, brilliant, and I love her. So anyways, this spread I learned from her in a different context, not in a study of Thoth, but in a study of Lenormand. She was the first person who helped me realize that Lenormand was a system that I would be interested in working with. And so, as part of my studies of Lenormand and watching her videos, I saw this spread that she uses on her site. I don't really recall what she calls it. I think it's called an elemental spread. So I've done something like it for the Thoth. And so what you saw there were 6 cards in the center, right? 3 above, 3 below. We can think of the 3 cards above as our conscious mind. What's on our mind? Where is our attention going? You can think of the 3 cards below as what is in the unconscious, or what's below our conscious awareness. And then you saw the 4 cards flanking, well, they look like 6 cards. Well, from one deck, there were 4 cards flanking the central 6, right? 1 above, left, right, 1 above upper left, 1 above upper right, 1 below lower left, 1 below lower right. And those are the elements. Yeah, fire, water, air, earth. And I've changed the way I approach elements since I've started playing with elemental dignities. Now, where I would usually do a roundabout of fire, water, air, earth, I've flipped that around a little bit because I want fire and water to be as opposite as they can possibly be, and I want air and earth to be as opposite as they can possibly be in the spread. Because those are the elements that are in conflict. In relationship, but in conflict. So I wanted them in catty corners. Yeah? The 2 on the top are friendly and they work together well and they fire each other up. The 2 at the bottom are friendly and they work with each other well and they flow with each other beautifully. The ones on the horizontals, they are neutral. Yeah? So in the upper left we had fire. In the upper right we had air. They're buddies. They build each other up. In the lower left we had earth. And in the lower right we had water. They're buddies. They build each other up. Yeah? On the left-hand side, we had fire and earth. They're very happy together. No problems. They're simpatico. They don't build each other up, but they're simpatico. Just as on the right, we had we had air and water. They're simpatico as well. Other people call them neutral. I like something a little smoother, a little more Italian. So I'm just going to say they're simpatico. They're not best friends. They don't build each other up, but they're good together. Yeah, the ones in kitty corner spots, those are the ones that are in conflict. Yeah, fire and water, air and earth. Does that make sense? So there were those 4 cards, and then on the very, very extreme ends, there were 2 cards from an oracle deck, which was an I-Ching deck, an I-Ching based deck that I got off of Kickstarter. And the reason why I selected the I-Ching is because Crowley wove his understanding of the I-Ching through his conceptualization of his deck. And then brought those ideas to Lady Frida Harris, and then they created the deck from that. Similar to the way, Arthur Edward Waite did not bring the I-Ching to Tarot, but still, he and Pamela Coleman Smith had that collaborative working relationship. Actually, probably he gave her some notes. She went off and did her thing. She came back and said, look at this. And there was some communication. Not as much there was much more communication. That's what I'm trying to say. There was much more communication between Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley. He tried to control her more, and she pushed back. And they created this amazing tarot together. It took a lot more time too, by the way. 6 months for the Smith-Waite. This one took years. So now, did you notice that they were the decks that I used of the of the Harris-Crowley, were the same and yet different? And yet none of them, well, the 6 in the center looked like and yet don't look like the ones we see sold on Amazon. That's because I trimmed mine down. I trimmed the borders off of one of my less expensive decks. I would not do that to a greenie, but to one of my, purchased off of Amazon Thoth tarot decks, I decided to try chopping off the borders. I left the bottoms down there because oftentimes the Hebrew letter and the attribute of the card is in that bottom border, and I did not want to get rid of that, especially for the major arcana. And since I was leaving it there for the major arcana, I also left it there for the minor arcana. But I whacked off all the other 3 borders, and I really liked how it turned out. I like the way the cards lay together. I like the way they inform each other. I like how open they feel. And then on the 4 corners, because I didn't want this spread to grow into an immense monstrosity, I decided to use my mini Thoth deck with all the borders still attached. So I've got the mini Thoth there for the elements, I've got my trimmed down Thoth there for the center, and then my I-Ching decks. Now, if you're curious about these decks, you can't buy the trimmed version. You're going to have to do that yourself. I'll give you a link to the Thoth deck. I'll give you a link to both the regular size and the mini size. I think it's still in publication. And I'll put a link to the I-Ching deck as well, if I can. Like I said, it was a Kickstarter. I think it's still they're still selling it. I'll double check that, and if I can, I'll put a link to them. Okay? So, friends, how am I going to read this for you? Now, if you are curious about this spread and you want to see a walkthrough just of the spread alone, let me know in the comments below and I'll do that for you. I'll give you a walkthrough of the spread using just one deck. Maybe 2. Probably just one deck. And yeah, so how are we going to read the deck? This spread, I mean. We're going to read the top line of the conscious 3 cards, and then we're going to read the bottom line of the below conscious 3 cards. Below consciousness 3 cards. And then we're going to look at all 6 together in a different way. We're going to look at the upper left, upper right, and bottom center card as one piece, which is well, actually, we're going to start with the other way. We're going to look at the top center and the lower left, lower right as one piece, so that the unconscious, the subconscious, the below consciousness elements are informing the central idea of the top line of cards. Then we're going to look at the other grouping, where we have the upper left, upper right, and bottom center, so that the things we're noticing in our experience, how they are informing our below conscious central idea. Does that make sense? If it does not, let me know in the comments below. I'll try and explain it a little bit more as we read through the spread. And then we're going to look at the 4 elements, and then we'll look at the 2 pieces of advice. So, yeah, that's how we're going to break down the spread in chunks. So let's start off with the first chunk, the 3 cards at the very top of the 6 card grouping. Here they are. Friends, what do you think of these cards trimmed down like this? I think it works really well. Even the backs are okay. Let me show you the back of the deck, trimmed down as I did. The back looks just fine, I think. Yeah? You could always tell whether it was upright or reversed, so there being a little less border space above the cross and a little bit more space below the cross. I don't think that makes much of a difference. And the way the image just pops out like this is, I think, fabulous. So this is the 5 of discs, which is worry, right? I'm going to switch hands here for just a second. Here we go. And what do we see on the card? We see 5 circles. bound together in what looks like an upside down pentacle. So instead of the point of the pentacle pointing up, the point of the pentacle looks like it's pointing down, right? And in the center of each one of those circles, there is a symbol, which are the 5 tattvas of Hindu tradition. And you can think of those as the 5 elements. Yeah? The first, the one down at the very bottom, the black egg, is the tattva of spirit, and it's called Akasha. Does that ring any bells for you? Akasha? Akashic records, the Akasha? And that's the element of spirit. The blue circle, do you see the blue circle? That is the tattva of air, called Vayu. The red triangle, do you see that one? What do you think red means? Red is for fire. Yes, and that's the tattva for Texas. Makes me think of Texas and Texas for Spanish. Now then we have the silver crescent, which looks like a moon, right? Moon. What does the moon bring to mind? Water, doesn't it? And that's the tattva called Apas. And then there's the yellow square. When we think of squares, what do we think of for elements? We think of earth, right? Earth. That is the tattva of earth called Prithvi. So we have the 5 tattvas, the 5 elements, here in this card on those circles. And behind the circles, there are gears. And behind the gears, there is bright light. When you look at this image, what do you think? There are 2 things that come to my mind when I see this card. One is, that light from behind looks so bright and joyful and happy. Why is this card called worry? I'm sorry, it's not white. It's I'm looking at my black and white version. The yellow in this card turns white when I print it out. But so it's yellow. But still, that yellow looks really happy to me. I don't know if it looks happy to you, but to me it looks very happy. The other thing that comes to my mind is these gears do not make any logical sense. Yeah? If these gears were placed in a machine, this wouldn't work. This wouldn't do anything. Now, the attribution for this card, the 5 of discs, is Mercury in Taurus. Mercury in Taurus. Yeah? So Taurus, when Mercury is in Taurus, what do we get? We get the Virgo decadent of Taurus, right? Which is the mutable aspect of fixed Earth's vital attributes entering our world. Now, the mutable aspect of fixed Earth's vital attributes. So there's this idea of Taurus who wants to be stable, wants to do its own thing, wants to walk its own way. And then we got to figure it out. Well, what's going to happen? The Mercury here in Virgo can be very happy, can be very intelligent. There could be intelligence, a little bit of conservatism, and a Mercury in Taurus person can be a bit of a plotter. Yeah, someone who doesn't. Taurus is not famous for moving quickly. Mercury gets in here, and the thinking gets so slow, gets so paced at their own rate that from the outside it looks like somebody who's just plodding along. But they're very intelligent. They are clever. And yet, Crowley looks at the other way of approaching Mercury and Taurus, where Mercury gets into Taurus and wants to go fast, and Taurus is going slow and is kind of bouncing off the walls and creating worry, perhaps. So what do we get here? It's very interesting because even though the card is called worry, we have ideas of stability on the edge of disruption. Now, things haven't broken down yet, but we're near the edge where things could go awry. The stability of the 4 is on the verge of perhaps breaking down. It could also be that things are starting to shake, like an earthquake in slow motion. Yeah? Slow seismic shifts of attachments, so that there's an instability here. Not a quick, not a frightening seismic earthquake shakeup, but a slow earthquake, an earthquake in slow motion. We may feel the ground slipping away. We're not falling yet. Haven't been knocked over, but we feel things slipping away. So worry, something could be about something that has been taken for granted or even forgotten about. And that's starting to shift. It's starting to break away, or it's starting to break down. And so suddenly it's like, what's going on here? Yeah? And so suggestions might be to strip down to the essentials or wait to begin something else. If we're thinking of beginning something, this is not the time. If we're in the middle of something, we start to feel the ground slipping away from beneath us, or that things are shifting in ways that we had not anticipated, it might be time to pare things down, to simplify. Because our resources could be drained at this moment. And so again, if this worry is because of a personal thing, something we're engaged in, or something we are experiencing in our own personal sphere of perception, our own lives, that's some good advice. But if we're perceiving the worry from our environment rather than from within our own selves, this isn't the best time for us to get engaged with other people, to start working on things. It may be time to strip that down too, so that we don't start going down the slippery slope of worry. So that we don't start slipping down to the cliff of breakdown. Interesting thing, right? Very interesting thing. And this card is flanked by, the first modifier of this card was a card we usually don't want to see, the Tower. This is a fascinating tower, right? We see this huge, like lamprey, like being coming down from the sky, blowing fire on the tower, and we see the light of the divine eye above, helping to crack the tower down from above. We see a dove, though. Yeah, do you see the dove? Let's see, for you, the dove is over here. Do you see the dove holding the branch of peace? Do you also see this snake-like being? Which reminds us of the demiurge that created the world. So we've got the Holy Spirit, peace with the bird. We've got the demiurge which created the world here on the side, in the midst of disruption. And figures are, not only is the tower breaking apart, but the figures flying out of the tower are also turned crystalline and are in shattering. And the attribution for the card, the tower, is Mars in this system. Mars is domiciled in both what? In both Aries and in Scorpio. So we've got both cardinal fire and fixed waters, vital attributes, entering our world through this card. We have the Hebrew letter Peh, which is the letter for mouth. Yeah? And so this huge mouth down here at the bottom makes absolute sense. Yeah, Peh, the mouth. Speech, the power of words. So speech and communication is part of this breakdown. Now, because it's Peh, the associated rune would be Tiwaz, which kind of looks like a line with, it looks like an arrow. Let's just say it like it is. It looks like an arrow, and it is the rune for the god Tyr. So there are sacrifices here. The god Tyr sacrifices his hand to bind a monstrous wolf that was about to eat all the other gods. So, to prevent total destruction, Tyr sacrifices his own hand. So there's sacrifice here. There's disruption here, but with sacrifice, that disruption is ended. There's also justice and authority associated with Tyr. And again, self-sacrifice for success. And so in other decks, in the Continental Tarot system, no, let's not go there. Sorry, let's not go there. Let's move on. So what does the Tower represent? The destruction of desire and new life in this deck. There's ruin, there is destruction, but there's also desire and sexual energy. It's the destruction which is the prelude to the Judgment card, the Aeon card, and Rebirth. And here, this eye up here can be the Christian eye of God, but it could also be the eye of Shiva. Now, Shiva is the god of destruction. And when Shiva opens his eye, what happens? Two things happen. One, the entire universe is destroyed. The second thing is, the lingam, you know, Yoni lingam, the lingam, the male aspect, ejaculates for conception and new birth. So it's destruction and rebirth. And I'm going to say it, ejaculation, which is also called oftentimes the little death. Have you heard that? Le petit mort. So we've got that. It's the destruction for eventual rebirth. There's peace and knowledge contained here that is also released. So how does that modify worry? Well, worry might be because there is some of this on the horizon or waiting in the wings. There's some disruption, some breaking down, some cracking down, either personally or in our personal environment that is causing the worry of those around us or within ourselves. And we're not talking time frames here, but it makes sense that this worry card is flanked by the Tower card. There's the worry not about death, for example, not about something new like maybe the Magus that we're going to have to take care of and we're worried that we might not be able to live up to it. It's the worry of things cracking apart, things breaking down. But also, which will also release a kind of energy for creation. But right now, maybe we or those around us are focused on the destructive part of that process. Consciously or unconsciously, and that's causing the worry. That makes sense, right? And then we move on to the Three of Cups. Beautiful card. Love this card. This is abundance. What do we see? Do you see the three goblets there? The three goblets are made of granite seeds. Yeah? So these tall things here, 1, 2, 3. These tall things here are the cups. And we see some lotuses holding each one of the cups, but there are extra lotuses too, right? Now there are the 3 lotuses at the bottom holding each of the cups, and there are lotuses from above pouring water down. It's just a gorgeous card, full of water. And in this card, we've got Mercury again. This time Mercury is in Cancer. Not the place that Mercury usually belongs. But remember, Mercury is the partner of Jupiter, right? If you think of planetary pairings, for me at least, Venus and Mars, that's pretty common. And then we have the sun and the moon. They're pretty common, but they're also paired with Saturn. So the sun and the moon each have one sign each. Saturn has two. So the sun and the moon pair with Saturn, and those four form binary pairs. And so the two that are left are Mercury and Jupiter, and they're in an interesting relationship of mentor-mentee, perhaps older-younger lover. Many ways of approaching that pairing of Jupiter and Mercury. Mercury being the androgyne of the group. Yeah? Being with old daddy god, power king, makes sense. Kind of like Ganymede, only Mercury. So, Mercury is the partner of Jupiter. And Jupiter is very happy in Cancer because there is the Pisces decadent of Cancer. I know I'm working through this weird, twisted, convoluted way of making peace with Mercury being in Cancer. So, Mercury is the partner of Jupiter. Jupiter is happy in Pisces because that would be the and so this would be the Pisces decadent of Cancer, from which mutable waters, the mutable aspect of cardinal waters attributes could enter our world through there. So Mercury is in, I would think, his partner's house. So there's a kind of comfort there. And mutable and cardinal aspects are not too uncomfortable. And Mercury, when in Cancer, cautions us to communicate gently, to become intimate and vulnerable. And remember when we talked about this card and the word pe, pe, mouth, speech, power of words. Maybe the crackdown is because of the words, because of that aggressive language, of the way we're communicating. And so this card is asking for more finesse, more empathy, more gentleness, a little bit of vulnerability in the face of the worry from the disruption of the tower. And this card points to, you see all that water flowing. The water is being drawn up and then flowing down, and then drawn up and flowing down. We have endless cycles and the flow of water here. So according to Crowley, we have the fulfillment of will received in love. And remember, Crowley spoke frequently about love under will. Love under the power of our will. It's all love under will. So here we have the fulfillment of will received in love as well. There's a potential to be lost in the underworld here, though. Yeah? Think pomegranate seeds. Think of Persephone. Yeah? So there's the potential of being lost in the underworld here if pursuing what has already been consumed. So if we've already received something, we've already experienced it, we've already had that wonderful enjoyment, and we keep chasing after it after we've eaten it. Have you ever had that experience of having something delicious in your experience? And it could be something we put in our mouth, food. It could be food. Sometimes we put other things in our mouths, but it could be food. But it could be something else. It could be a roller coaster ride. It could be some other experience that we have and it's delicious, and so we want to have that experience again. But of course, we can never have that experience again, and we chase after it, and we find ourselves consumed by the chase, and we find ourselves in the underworld. Does that make sense? So we want to be careful of that, chasing after an experience we've already had, because that experience has been had. But remember, Persephone in the underworld, So many of us focus on, oh, poor Persephone, she was abducted and she got tricked into staying into the underworld. But remember, she ends up being the queen of the underworld. She comes into her power down there. And she has, in many traditions, a very deep, loving relationship with her husband, with Hades. And yes, she comes out to be with her mom for a few months, and then she goes back down to be the queen of the underworld. So there's abundance here, the fruits of our labors, but they may be passing. There could be mixed blessings here. So maybe that is what is coloring the Tower card and the Worry card, that some things have been good. Some things have been really good, and maybe we're chasing after those things we've already experienced. And we can't get them, and so there's the worry there. Why can't I get that? Why can't I have that again? Maybe we find ourselves plunged into a tower moment of the underworld because we're chasing something that we've already experienced, and it's time to move toward the next thing. Or we're happy with what we've got, and they might be passing. I've had this huge harvest, and now we're appreciating the harvest, we're reveling in the harvest, and after time, if not consumed, those fruits of our labor will start to rot, right? Even if preserved fairly well, eventually they're going to start to rot. But that's a good thing, because that's the cycle of life, and so we plant again, we have a different experience, a different harvest later. But if we're focusing so much on what we've experienced, and we want to keep it, we don't want to let it go, or we want to have it again, that could cause the tower, that could cause the worry, right? That makes sense, doesn't it? So this is what's in our emotional, emotional too, but in our conscious sphere right now, in this coming week. And it could, again, be personal, entirely our own experience, or it could be things that we're feeling from our environment, from the people around us. So friends, we got the next set of 3 cards. Let's take a look at those for the unconscious, the below conscious perception. Here they are. These are the 3 cards for as below. No. These are the 3 cards for the unconscious, or the below the surface of our consciousness. And we begin with the central card of the Empress. This is a beautiful card, right? You see this beautiful Empress. She's on her throne. She's got a pelican down there at one side, which is the symbol of Christ, actually. It's the pelican who was believed to be nibbling at their own breast to feed their children of their own blood. So that became a symbol of Christ, the sacrificing God. We have what is this called? A shield, not a shield, a shield with an eagle on there, which is the royal bird and a symbol of the Empress. The Empress is holding, what is the Empress holding? A lotus in one hand. Now we got moons on the side. We got the idea of cycles here. And we have the Empress associated with Venus, which is domiciled in both Taurus. Remember, the card above this was Taurus, right? Was Mercury in Taurus. And here we got Venus, which is domiciled in Taurus. So we got a lot of Taurus here in the center. But it's also domiciled in Libra, so we have both fixed Earth and we have both fixed Earth and cardinal heirs vital attributes entering our world. We have fixed Earth and cardinal heirs vital attributes entering our world. And the Empress connects both Chokmah and Binah. It connects the mother pillar and the father pillar. Or from my perspective, the mother pillar and the father pillar. The Hebrew letter here is Daleth, which is a door. It's the opening to help the burdened, the empty receptacle of divine blessing, the door, the opening for reception and for giving. And as this is Daleth, this is also associated with the rune of Ansus, which kind of looks like an F pointing down. And Ansus is the rune for messages and inspiration and enthusiasm, but also health, harmony, truth, and wisdom, which I think are very appropriate for the Empress. Yeah? Health, harmony, truth, wisdom. The wisdom of the divine feminine, right? And for Crowley, the Empress is the card of eternal creation from unity to duality, and then the multitude. Yeah? So there's the unity of the all, which divides into subject and object. But it doesn't stop there. Those two merge and create a third. And then the third splits and becomes the multitude. But it all starts from the first split into duality, right? And that's what we see here. The split into duality, then the multitude. And the diversity of all existence, of the universe. So it's not so much the going out and making of things, but the creation of division, right? Not division like me against you, but the division of self and other, of the biological sense of creation and by division. Splitting of cells so that they grow and then they split and then they grow and they split, right? Of cycles of growth and creation, of life, of unity, also of love, completion, and pleasure are also here. Yeah, the Empress is especially when we think of Venus, and Venus in Taurus, it's a pleasure and Venus love and Venus union, right? It's the highest love, the highest English, the highest unity and the highest pleasure. Going all in, pulling out all the stops to experience and flow with the Venusian energy of love, union, creation. That's the Empress. So that's what's going on under the surface. And so perhaps it's that tension between this is what's bubbling like a geyser before it shoots, burbles below the surface. The energy begins to gather for an eruption. That could be this, and maybe that's what's firing up that sense of worry, of unease, of unsettledness, being unsettled. So what is it about this Empress? Well, we've got right next to it the first modifier, the first adjective attached to this noun is the Ten of Wands. Let me just pull out the Ten of Wands. Yeah, we have this beautiful Ten of Wands with all the fire in the background. Yeah, and you see these two Tibetan wands here, which are considered to be strong and pure like a diamond. And the association here is Saturn in Sagittarius. And Saturn in Sagittarius is really hard for me to wrap my mind around. But that's what we've got. Saturn in Sagittarius. So what does that mean? Saturn in Sagittarius, there's a destiny to become successful, but we're called to buckle down and focus. Something that Sagittarius is not so keen on generally. Sagittarius is, let's go out, let's have some fun, let's create, let's be bold. I'm going to go out and follow me if you will, but I'm going to go out and do my thing and I'm going to have some fun and I'm going to... But Saturn comes in and says, lays down the law, and the law is to buckle down and focus, and you'll be successful. Now, so that fiery creative energy is given some structure, a lens to focus on, to focus through. So according to Crowley, this is the potential of being carried away by desire to achieve something. But that desire needs to be reined in. Now, that desire could be more like a group of wild horses that, for successful movement, benefit from being reined in. Our ambition could be overextended, and if so, our aim could be lost. Now we're called to return to the source of fire, to the source of the Ace of Wands, here. Now, get your crap together. It's another way of saying it. Yeah, you've got all this energy going out and rein it in, focus. Get back to your why. Now, that was the thing that came to my mind when I was perusing the things written about this card was, why was the thing begun in the first place? Find the why again. Why have we started on this creative path? Why has Sagittarius begun the journey? That why is the Ace of Wands. So return to that why. And often this card is entitled oppression, but often our internal oppression rather than the external oppression is what this is pointing to. It's not like other people are blocking our path and we're burdened down with other people's stuff. We're burdened down by our own stuff. We're overwhelmed, perhaps, by our own desires, and I want it, and I got it, and I'm gonna, and oh. So that oppression is, rein it in. And break free of the self-created oppression by finding the why, finding that Ace of Wands that started us on the journey. So, linked with the Empress, what does this mean? These two cards elementally are not necessarily problematic, yeah? If we can focus on the more Libran aspect of Venus, of balance and beauty, that could really fire up and benefit Saturn in Sagittarius by bringing together the opposites in balance to find the central path, to find the harmonious path, and return to the source, the core of the direction we want to move in, rather than succumbing to oppression, which is self-created. Does that make sense? And so these two cards are modified again by the card of completion, right? This beautiful universe card. Got the woman dancing in the center holding, do you see the scythe that she's holding? Yeah? There's a scythe here up above that connects also with the eye from above. And we've got the Ouroboros of the snake around her. Beautiful card. And what else do we have? We got the four elements, the four fixed signs perhaps. We've got the bird for Scorpio. We've got the human face for Aquarius. We got Leo for the fire, the lion, and we got Taurus, the bull, for Earth, right? And she's dancing her dance. And I'm sorry, what am I saying? No, there isn't a snake Ouroboros. There is not a snake Ouroboros. There's a snake. There's a snake winding around her, but it's not an Ouroboros. The Ouroboros, the sphere, the egg that is formed by the wings of the cherubim, the fixed signs, whatever you want to call those things. And then there's a circle around that, but there's also a snake winding around her. It's a gorgeous card. And we've got the attribute here of Saturn again. Saturn is emphasized. Now, Saturn's natural homes are Capricorn and Aquarius. So with this card, we have cardinal Earths and fixed airs vital attributes entering our world. So, that Aquarius and the Libra aspect of Empress and Capricorn and the Taurus aspect of Empress are beautifully paired. They're, like we say, simpatico, I think. So, in the Empress, we've got fixed Earth and cardinal air. In the universe, we've got cardinal Earth and fixed air. Balance, right? And we have the letter of Yesod. I'm sorry, no, not the letter. We have the universe being Yesod, foundation, and Malkut. It connects both of those. It's the bottom of the tree of life, connecting foundation and manifestation, kingdom. The letter associated with this is Tau, the cross, which is a mark, like X marks the spot, kind of a mark. It's also humankind's ultimate destination, completion before beginning again. Makes sense, right, for the universe card or the world card in other systems. And because it's Tav, it's also associated with Ingwaz, the rune, which is the earth god, the great god Ing, which is fertility and retreat and growth. So we have, Ing is interesting, retreat and growth. We back off and then we grow, right? For fertility. And the universe card points to manifestation of the divine and an emanation of spirit into the material plane, which makes sense. We're at the very bottom of the tree of life. We've come into manifestation here. The coming together and ending of all things so that we're ready to create a new beginning. So there's synthesis here, completion and new beginnings. Set structure and format is completed. There's a fixedness here. The final arrangement. And maybe a moment for well-deserved rest of, I did the thing. Let's enjoy the thing before we set off on a new journey. So how does that modify the first two cards? Now we've got creation, unity, love, which could be very diffuse. So to prevent that, we have the Ten of Wands here saying to find out why. Why are we doing this? Keep ourselves focused. Keep our ambition from getting overextended and losing our aim. Because perhaps we're at that end of a journey, the end of a cycle, the end of something, and the way we can focus is maybe through that synthesis of the ending of what we have experienced. Now remember, this is all stuff happening in the below conscious level. Now that burst of creativity, but we want to control it, we want to keep it focused, we want to remember our why, and we want to realize that we're here because we are launching from the universe. We're launching from this. And so synthesize what we've experienced, what we've created. Recognize the form and structure that is in place as a launching pad from Yesod into Malkut, and then back up into Kether, which is the top of the tree. Because Malkut is the very bottom. Yes, we're landed here, foundation, structure, and we're ready to move back up to the top. That takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of focus, which we're called to here in the Ten of Wands. Does that make sense? So that's what's below. And maybe it's because of that being below, because of that tension of ending and growth and expansion of the Empress and the endings of the universe and the need to focus, or else things will start getting going all over the place. Maybe that could be what's feeding the worry above, right? So let me show you all 6 of these cards together again. Here they are. So you saw those 6 cards together. And I'm going to find a way to indicate how we're going to read those cards here on that image that you just saw. I haven't done it yet, so I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that, but hopefully you saw the way we're going to be reading these. We're going to look at first the central card above paired with the 2 bottom cards left and right. And then we're going to look at the bottom card of the center bottom card, and the pairing of upper left and upper right. So first we're going to look at the upper pointing arrow, you might say, which begins with this card. I'm sorry, I got the wrong set of cards. This card. So the worry card, right? Our feeling that things are slipping away. Well, why are they slipping away? Well, maybe they're slipping away. What's feeding this from below? One thing that seems to be feeding this is the Ten of Wands. So maybe our feeling of things slipping away, our feeling that we're in a slow motion earthquake, is because we've got all of this fire from within, within us. That Saturn in Sagittarius, that unsettled combination where we've got this fire that wants to achieve something, and we're not doing a really good job of getting it focused. And that's unsettling. And that being in the unconscious may be what is causing that sense of our experience of worry, whether it's personal or whether it's in our environment. Because maybe if we weren't feeling this, we wouldn't even notice other people worrying so much. Just because people around us are worrying doesn't mean we have to notice it, right? So whether it's our own experience of our own personal worries or our experience of the worries that are in our environment, maybe we're experiencing those because of this is within our unconscious. As well as the sense of, okay, so I've gotten to the place of a completion, a manifestation of something coming together, and it's manifest, and it's now what? That paired with this fire to go doing something together would cause a lot of tension. Yeah, Saturn in Sagittarius with Saturn in Capricorn and Aquarius, they're pulling in different directions. One is completion, yes, 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 and the other one is no, I want to keep going. And that tension may be what is causing our experience of worry, of things slipping away from us, of cracking. Things might feel like things that we haven't been giving enough attention might be cracking apart. Or that our resources are drained, and maybe those resources are our own energy is being drained because of this tension from below. Right? And so above, above? The other V, the arrow pointing down, pointing towards the unconscious center, which is this card, right? The Empress. Again, unity, love, eternal creation. This desire for this is being fed by two other cards that could be in tension, right? Mars in Capricorn and Scorpio, and Mercury in Cancer. So our sense of things cracking apart, the ruin and destruction that is being sensed either personally or in the environment by other people, paired with this realization, the knowledge of abundance and eternal cycles of emotional energy which are flowing for us and through us, and yet that's abundance, the fruit of our labors might be passing. Now we got the stuff, we got the fulfillment of will in love, but we notice it's starting to crumble at the edges perhaps, and perhaps that's feeding this, and then so within us comes the desire for, wait, no, unity, creation, love, that's what I want. I want pleasure. I want to enjoy. I don't want to go through this. Does that make sense? Do those cards, how they influence each other, make sense to you? If they do, let me know in the comments below. If they don't, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Would you read that differently? Now, friends, we've got 4 cards. And remember, we were just talking about things being in tension and pulling at each other, right? And I think we'll get a little bit more of that in just a moment. Let me show you the 4 cards that indicate the 4 elements around this central spread. Here they are. For these 4 cards, you saw that we had, starting in the upper left, we had the Hanged Man, going clockwise, the 6 of Discs, the Princess of Wands, and then the Prince of Swords. 2 royals, 1 major arcana, 1 just plain old minor arcana. Yeah, small card. Did you also notice that because the Hanged Man is water, we had all 4 elements present in these 4 spots? Fire, water, air, earth. We're all here in the elemental section of the spread. Sounds good, right? But did you also notice that in the upper left, which is the placement for fire, we had water. In the lower right, which is the placement for water, we had fire. In the upper right, which is the placement for air, we had earth. And in the lower left, which is the placement for earth, we had air. Not only were each of the elements present, they were all in different signs. Not only were they all not only were none of them in their own places, they were all in places of their enemies, basically. Fire and water are elementally opposed. Air and earth are elementally opposed, and they were each in their opposite spot. So what is the first thing that we take from this grouping of elemental information? It is, we got to get our crap together. We've got everything we need, but it's just in the wrong place. And maybe that's the reason why we've got worry here. So the things that we're where our passions could lie, and where our will and our inner fire to create and to is watered down by emotion and how do I feel about it. And the place that is for our emotions, where the love and the connection and the intuition is burning with fire. And I'm going to take charge of my intuition. I'm going to make it happen, kind of thing. Yeah. I'm going to take charge of this relationship and we're going to make it happen. And then, in the place where we're supposed to be imagining and visioning and thinking about, we're saying, well, let's focus right here, right now, and get some work done. And the place where we should be focusing and getting work done and thinking about right now and the stuff that's around us, we're thinking about, well, I don't know, what about this? Look at that. Oh, isn't that interesting? Instead of doing the work. The stuff isn't in the right places. The stuff is all pretty good, but it's not in the right places. So we'll begin with the Hanged Man. One of my favorite cards, right? When I saw this come out, I thought, yes, this is really my spread. Spread is really here for me this time around. My first reading with the Thoth for my deep dive year, and my favorite card comes out, but it's in the wrong spot, right? The Hangman, lovely card. You'll notice that my logo for this series is based on this. The Hanged Man is associated with water, but it's in the fire spot. So the place where our creativity and our leadership and our will, here we have water. So the Hanged Man resides between Gebara and Hod, between severity and surrender, for me. Now, it could be severity and splendor, but for me, a Hod is surrender to the obstacle. So between the justice, the law, the cutting of things, and surrendering to things. It's Mem for the womb, waters of life. It's a watery card. It's also Iwaz, the rune Iwaz, which is the rune for the yew tree from which bows are made. It's wisdom and endurance and initiation. So the waters of life with endurance, initiation, wisdom. But Crowley has a fairly negative impression of this card, because Crowley does not like the idea of self-sacrifice. Yeah? He thinks that the ideas of self-sacrifice and redemption are implied here, but he doesn't really think that's an appropriate response to life. However, he believes that growth from the water is implied, but there's an unnecessary self-criticism implied in this card as well. Now, water here drowns and kills, but it also provides fertilizer. It decomposes the body and provides fertilizer for something new to grow. So something must be drowned to fertilize the earth. Must process change to release the old through death, is how he sees this card. It's the process of breaking things down that will die so that things can grow. And also unnecessary self-criticism. In the spot for where our passions should be, where our willpower should be, where our confidence should be, we got this. Now things can grow, but it's snuffing out our passion and our confidence. Thus worry, maybe. So then, this is where our fire should be. What's where our water should be? Let's look at that next. So where we should be concentrating on our emotions, our connection with other people, our intuition. We got the Princess of Wands, which is the Earth of Fire. 1 quadrant around the North Pole. Now, Crowley associates the royals with the I-Ching very clearly. So this is Earth of Fire, which is hexagram 27, which is a person of omnivorous passions, reckless in attaining gratification. This is the one who's gonna get what they want no matter what, and wants it all. Just like a kid, just like a child of the family might be. And yet there's the idea of radical transformation here. What is fueling the fire? What is burning because this is earth, right? Earth of fire. What is burning to release and release and release energy? What is burning? The person is brilliant, daring, courageous. But we must be aware of where the passion burns. There's a bright spark of idea. Our ability to generate something novel is here. And we might want to be careful of hyperactivity and perhaps irrationality. And maybe that's maybe the key word for this in this reading. Because this card is not where it wants to be. Now, if this were up in the fire, we have omnivorous desires to create, and we're brilliant and we're daring, but here in the water, it's this desire for creation and these novel, inspired desires are trying to burn on water, in water. And so what we got perhaps is this darting around of the water and not the spark not ever being able to take. And so we've got irrationality happening, leading to perhaps worry. Yeah? So what's happening in the air? What's happening in the air? What's happening in our mind, in our vision? What are we looking at? What are we thinking about? The card's great. The card's wonderful. It's the 6 of Discs, success. Which is interesting because Crowley associates this with the moon in Taurus. Now the moon in Taurus, which doesn't quite fit very well, but we have the ability to unconsciously manifest. We can comfort. We have the unconscious ability to manifest here. Both our experiences and materials of things. Comfort and security for us are important here. The moon in Taurus. It's also the 6th card, which is Tiphreth, which is the heart. Yeah? It's the heart of the tree of life. And it connects both Kether and Malkuth, the very top and the very bottom. That connects to Malkuth through Yesod, but Tiphreth connects the entire tree of life, from top to bottom, from soup to nuts. So the 6 of Discs for Crowley is instant, pure success, but we want to be careful of attachment to that success, because that success is transitory. But don't shy away from it either. Like, oh, that'll be nice, but it's so temporary, I don't want to mess with it. Have you ever experienced that? This card recommends that we go for the success, but don't get attached to its results. This success is manifested. So we're asked to work without a lust of the results. Does that make sense? To work without our need for the completion as well. Because success will happen. Unless we're like greedy for it. We're like Gollum, my precious. Trying to grasp this success will vanish. So we're asked to enjoy the quiet time when things appear to be calm, to work for things without lust for the results, because grasping for it will make it disappear. This is what's on our mind, rather than what we're doing. So we're thinking about, success. So if I keep working, I can be successful, but if I want the success, then I will disappear. And this is confusing for the mind, I think. And so maybe worry. And so what's in our earth area? Our earth area is filled up with this very erratic Prince of Swords. And I see the sword in the top hand is in a position that is unusable and is stretching his body out of shape. There's another sword, there's a dagger. It's hard to see. There's another sword down here, but none of the swords, nothing is being held with authority, with surety. There's a very airy kind of twisted out of position sense to this Knight of Swords. And the Knight of Swords has these three beings below, which are on reins, but the prince is not really holding tight to those reins. He's not doing anything with them, although they are attached to the chariot, to the prince's chariot, and pulling it forward, but by whose will? And it's interesting here. This is hexagram 57. This is air of air, which is the sun, which is flexible yet able to penetrate when focused. Like the sun through a magnifying glass can penetrate when focused, and it's also flexible. It goes everywhere, does everything, which is wonderful. But when brought into this airy area of air of the Prince of Swords, we get fragmented thought that can resolve itself into a pattern. Think of many colors of glass that gets shattered in a kaleidoscope. But a huge kaleidoscope. And we look closely at it and it doesn't make any sense. But if we pull back, it will resolve into some kind of pattern. Yeah? So close inspection will reveal its fragmented state, but pulling back to see the wholeness will reveal a pattern for us. This Prince of Swords is also associated with Tippereth. The princes are associated with Tippereth, similar to, but for different reasons, this card being associated with Tippereth. And they're in opposing corners, right? So we got Tippereth here again. The heart. Beauty. The beauty of self-awareness. But also potential identification with thought, which could be problematic. Yeah? Reason and logic, yet not applied. Idle thinking or overthinking is indicated here. There's an unstable force of the Prince of Swords, something untethered from its original goals. Yeah? This prince has ridden off and started going in a direction, but the direction has been lost. Because of perhaps lack of focus, idle thinking, overthinking, which could be a little problematic in the air side, but here in the earth side, it's completely breaking things down. Yeah? because nothing can get done under these circumstances. Yeah, we're thinking a lot of stuff, but nothing's getting done. Our thinking is all idle, and it's overthinking, and it's unstable, and it's untethered. All the things that are antiphema to earth elements. Yeah, so our work is fragmented and disoriented and unfocused because of this. Our thoughts are unclear because this earthiness is making them difficult to figure out. Right? Our emotional life is disrupted by all of this passion that is irrational now. Yeah? It's trying to burn water, and it just doesn't work. And then where our willpower could fix everything, maybe, we got the hanged man saying, okay, I give up. I got to process. I need to go through a transformation. This is not the place for transformation. This is the place for will. So what do we want to do? What do we have to do? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that this worry is perhaps because everything is in its wrong place. We need to do a little bit of a lot of reorganization here. We got to put the hanged man in the place of the emotional life. We want to put the Princess of Wands back in her place of our willpower and our passion and our focus. We want to put the Prince of Swords back into our mind and bring the Six of Discs back into our work. But right now, everything is cattywampus, as they say, and so perhaps the worry is is the thing we're feeling and noticing more. So we've got 2 cards for advice. Yeah, 2 I-Ching cards for advice. Let's take a look at those cards right now. This deck is beautiful. I hope that it's available still. I hope that it is available now for you to purchase. If it is, I'll have a link below. But this is an I-Ching oracle, which is phenomenal. The art is just beautiful. Were you able to read the titles on the cards? I'm not sure how clear they were for you. But I hope if you were able to read the titles at the bottom, that you weren't unsettled by the advice here being both army and dispute. It's like, okay, so the answer is to go to war? Is that what it's saying? But actually, because this is the first time I used this oracle deck, that was the first thing that came to my mind was army, dispute. So the way to get over our feelings of worry is to go to war? That doesn't sound good. So let me show you the army card. This is beautiful. It's a beautiful card. Army is earth and water. The 2 trigrams are earth and water. Now we had earth above, which are 3 split lines, and then water below, which is one continuous line with 2 split above and 2 split below, giving us the attribution of army. It's groundwater stored in the earth is the concept here. Groundwater stored in the earth, just like military strength is stored in the mass of people called an army. It's not the army at war, it's the army as a concept. Now, where strength and power is stored in a group of people. So, the concept of an army as organized, as an organization of power is here. Also, a teacher or leader A teacher or leader may be available with organization, assembly, and leadership. I made a little bit of a mess with my notes. I was trying to figure out what I was trying to say. Yeah, not only is it the group of people, but it's also the people or the person who leads that group, which could be a teacher or a leader who is able to bring together people with organization, assembly, and leadership is also indicated here. Forming a team to attain a goal when the time is right. And that's key. When the time is right to smoothly overcome challenges, then it's time to bring the team together. Not before, not after. At the time, when it's appropriate. So we've got there's a standing army and they're off living their daily lives until it's time to bring them together. That kind of army is also implied here. Integrity and fairness are called for here. Now, the way we hope an army would naturally be administered would be done with integrity and with fairness. This card also indicates that help for us might come from family or friends. So if we're the ones experiencing our own personal worry, we might want to turn to people around us in our intimate circle for help. So this is the card of leading and also of being led, of collaborating and pooling resources together. Which would help in times of worry, I suppose. But the card that's paired with it is dispute. And the hexagram here is the trigram of heaven and water. So we've got water. Here we've got water above, here we've got water below. And here, heaven being above water implies conflict and disputes. But disputes are not always negative. Yeah? Disputes can have challenges and opportunities. So there's a call here to blend both assertive and receptive qualities. So we assert what we believe is true, but if that's all we do, then we can't escape conflict. If we assert what we believe is true and are receptive to a differing opinion, then opportunities can reveal themselves. So this card is asking us to find ways to resolve disputes, to remain neutral, cautious, and honest. We don't want to make shit up in order to prove ourselves right. We want to be honest, and honest about other people's opinions, ideas, understandings, beliefs. Not honest in the sense of criticism, but honest in understanding the way that they are approaching life. Persistence can lead to favorable outcomes if not held too long. Sometimes persistence can overstay its welcome and become destructive stubbornness. We don't want to go there, but persistence, yes. Kind of like the hanged man, in the hanged man's proper place. Seeking help from people with authority can help. We want to steer clear of excessive risk, step back and wait for a better solution might help us, rather than diving into the fray, stepping back and observing, paying attention, waiting for the best idea to appear, or at least a better idea to appear for us. Seeking resolution and understanding. That's what we're called for. So perhaps in order to do the work of the army, we want to be able to have the qualities that are beneficial in the dispute side, where we are honest. We don't want to hide what we're thinking either, because that causes fraction, breaking apart. Now, if I and the person I am working with, if I'm not honest and open with that person, then there's a barrier between us, there's resistance, and we can't be living our lives. I cannot live an intentional life. Now, we want to be honest and cautious and neutral as we relate with each other. And maybe the leader of the army could be the one that we could get help with here, in whatever dispute might be coming up. We might not be the leader of the army in this case. Maybe there is a leader of the army, the group that we are in and have power through, that can be the one we can call to and turn to help us resolve disputes. And again, we don't want to dive into the fray in either one of these cards. We want to step back, get a clear picture. Wait till the most opportune resolution appears for us. The win-win resolution. Wait for that to appear before taking action. And it's interesting, I hadn't thought of it before. Let's see, let me try it the other way. Okay, so what am I trying? In a sense, there's a way that this river can flow into this river. Do you see that? And so maybe our army, our peeps, are what can help us through whatever disputes are here that we are experiencing as worry. And perhaps by doing that, by finding ways to resolve whatever tensions, whatever things are pulling apart either within us or in our environment, being persistent with that, seeking help from our peeps, from our group, from our army, to attain that goal of finding resolution with integrity and fairness and honesty. Getting help from our friends and family might help us ease our way past the worry and help us to have the space, the energy to put the stuff back in their proper places so that the Hanged Man is in the water, the Princess of Wands is in the fire, that the Six of Discs is in the earth, and that the Prince of Air is in the air where he belongs. That we can get our passions in the passion spot and our emotions and intuition in that spot, get our work in the work spot and our thoughts in the thought spot. Does that make sense? If it does, let me know in the comments below. If it does not, let me know in the comments below. This is the first time I'm reading this, and I have a feeling this reading was much longer than I thought it would be. It'll probably go smoother and easier and quicker as we go through this series of my dive into the Thoth. But what do you think? This as being my first crack into the Thoth publicly, I'd love to hear from you. What does this resonate with you? Does the way I'm reading resonate with you? Does the information that we discussed resonate with you? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up button so that YouTube knows that you got something out of it and other people might get something out of it too. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so you get notifications of when I upload videos. I'm going to try to continue doing at least 2 a week this next semester. I think I can do it. And yes, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Oh, if you want a reading from me, Thoth, Smith Waite-based, whatever, Tarot de Marseille, my email address is below. thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. We'll get you a reading. So friends, here we are. First video. in the box. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.